All right. Well, welcome everybody. Hey, I'm so excited that we get a chance to join you today live. If you're on the webinar, we'd love to see that the city and state and where you're joining in, or maybe the country that you're joining in from, because we are broadcasting worldwide. And if you're watching live on Facebook, we'd love to see the city and state and where you're joining in from, or the country, in the comments section. And if you're watching a recording, we'd love to see that as well from you. So go ahead and post a comment, and super excited to be with you all today. Many of you know how fond I am of Jim Cathcart. He's been one of my mentors, been a hero of mine for over 20 years, been, good friends, mentors and business partners, and had so many cool interactions. And he's been one of my favorite speakers. And, I tried to make a list of all the things that I loved about Jim Cathcart, but I ran out of ink. There's a lot of really cool things about Jim. And, some of you already have seen some of the accolades. Jim was the past president of the National Speakers Association. He was the professional speaker. He's in the Professional Speakers Hall of Fame. He's won the Cavett Award. He's won the Golden Gavel Award. He's one of the top 5 most award-winning speakers in the world. And he's trying to give me some props for the book that I wrote that Jim also wrote the foreword for. So, but turning the attention back to Jim, his TEDx video has over 2.5 million views, his TEDx speech. He's the author of 25 books. And the last book that we are going to talk about, or one of the final books, I don't know if it's the last book, but he has written a book titled What to Do When You're the Speaker. And I'm so excited to get a chance to share some of the principles from it, because even if you're not a speaker, you're going to benefit from this. In terms of a professional speaker, if you're a person that has to speak in front of a group of people, and a group is more than 2, right? So if you're going to be in a position to speak, Jim's going to be able to share some wisdom. So Jim, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, it's a treat, Dave. Now, I'm with family. So, hey, how could I not be comfortable, right? And that's you nailed it on this. I wrote this for speakers, not about speaking. Most people say, oh, it's a speaking book. It's how to give a speech, how to write a speech. No, it's not. No, it's what to do when the guy before you went 30 minutes overtime and you have a 1-hour presentation to give in 15 minutes. It's what to do when someone in the audience has a medical emergency and you're the only one with a microphone, or the building catches on fire and you have to evacuate 700 people and you weren't prepared to do that. Or when you're ill and the show goes on, what do you do in all those instances?
Yeah, and as Jim and I were talking about this presentation that we were going to do, or this discussion, many of the things that he was bringing up, that he posted remedies or strategies in the books, were things that I personally experienced. And I go, man, it would have been nice to know that before it happened, because there's been some tragedies and some things that happened in my environment of speaking. So Jim, let's dive right in. I mean, you've spoken professionally, meaning that you've been paid to speak over 3,500 times. You've spoken in different countries with translators speaking in different languages. If you were to share some of the top takeaways from the book that can kind of encapsulate that experience of a lifetime to do all those things, what would be some of the things that would come to mind?
Well, one that came to mind while you were doing your intro was I was in, I think it was Omaha, it was Lincoln or Omaha, Nebraska. And I was being introduced to an insurance audience. And I was the featured keynote speaker. And I had gotten the speaking engagement through a speakers bureau. So I get there and they have a handout that everybody gets, and I'm looking through it, and the bio of the speaker is not mine. It's another guy with the last name Cathcart. Who knew there was another professional speaker with the last name? So I'm sitting there and I'm reading through this thing and I'm going, oh my God, what am I going to do? And the introducer gets up and reads it to the audience. And I thought, okay, this is getting worse. It was the bureau's mess up. It was the speaker's bureau. Somebody just got in a file, said, Cathcart, yeah, send them that, right? So I don't want to mess up my relationship with the speaker's bureau. So I got up on stage and everybody's applauding, of course. And I got up on stage and I said, good morning. I said, would you please turn to page 3 in your manual? And they did. And I said, That's a description of a speaker with the last name Cathcart, but it ain't me. See this face? That one's me. I said, so take your pen and do a big X across that bio. I said, I think maybe my staff back home was playing a practical joke on me. Well, okay, let's all say ha ha. Now, I'm Jim Cathcart and here's what I do, and here's why I'm here today. And I jumped right into my topic. So I didn't embarrass the Speakers Bureau. I took the blame on myself and my staff. I made fun of the moment, and life went on. Nobody ever thought another thing about it. Didn't embarrass the meeting planner because he had talked with me. He knew what I looked like too. And he still went ahead and printed that thing. So that's the thing, if you're a professional, you take responsibility, even if you're not responsible, and you make it work.
Yeah. So many experiences that you've had over the years, and, different experiences are obviously the ones that are the amazing ones that are so memorable. Is there a particular experience where everything went smash, but it actually turned out to be one of the best experiences you ever had?
Oh man, David, I could keep you here all day. Let's see. There was one time in Louisville, Kentucky, I was hired to speak for a big earth moving equipment company. I've forgotten the name of Vermeer Manufacturing. That's what it was. And we were meeting at the rodeo arena of the fairgrounds. And they had all their earth moving equipment out in the arena, like a rodeo. And the people up in the stands about 100 miles away from the stage, which was in the center of the dirt out there in the arena. And there was nothing on the stage but a microphone stand. That's it. And I got there early, of course. And I said to the meeting planner, I said, I can see a few problems here. I said, is the sound going to echo like Rocky Balboa? Are we going to, is that how it's going to sound to the audience? Because I'm conversational in my technique. And I want to actually talk with them. And he said, no, it's good. We've got sound system set up to be close to them so they'll hear you like you were right there near them. And I said, well, how are they going to see me? He said, well, there's a big screen that drops down and we'll have you projected on that. Okay, good. He said, this is Larry. He's your driver. Driver? Yeah, Larry's going to bring you into the arena. Oh, okay. I said, any way we could get closer? No. Okay. And Larry says, hi, I'm Larry. He said, come on with me. I'll tell you ride. So we go walking across the arena in the dirt. Now I'm in a suit and wingtips, right? So I go with Larry, and in the meantime, the people start arriving and everything starts. And they've got a guy who's on stage and he's announcing the program, and then he disappears and the lights dim in the arena. Well, I'm down one of the ramps with Larry, and Larry's driving a monster truck. And when we get to the monster truck, I said, good heavens, how am I going to get in that? He said, grab the hub of the wheel, step on the rim, and then grab the tread, and you can pull yourself up and grab the step and then do kind of a pull up, and you can grab the door of the cab. Okay, so I did. I climbed the truck, and I'm 2 stories up in a monster truck now in the passenger seat. Larry gets on the other side, and when they say, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your keynote speaker, Jim Cathcart, all the lights have gone out. A spotlight shows up on where we are, and Larry cranks up this monster. And man, it's throwing flames out the exhaust pipes, and it's got blue lights under the wheel wells and inside the cabin where we are. And he goes roaring out of the chute onto the dirt. And he's throwing a rooster tail of dirt behind us, and we go tearing across this arena. Get to the other end, he throws it into a power slide. We go up on 2 wheels and then bounce back down. And then he comes up in front of the stage, stops and says, okay. And I said, okay, what? He said, get out. And I said, well, how? He said, jump. Jump? Stage is only like 3 feet high, so It's a long way. Okay. So I jumped. And luckily I didn't fall and make a fool of myself, but I slid around a little bit. And then Larry goes roaring off. And everybody's, wow. Now, David, how are you going to follow that? So that was tough. And I did, I shared the moment with them, and we all applauded Larry. And I said to the audience, how are you going to follow that? And they all laughed. And then I launched into my speech and it went well. But man, was that awkward.
Well, you don't know this, but the factory, Vermeer Family Factory, is in my hometown, Pella, or where I'm at now.
Wow.
And the CEO of Vermeer lives about 6 doors down from me. So I'll have to bring that up to Jason Andrew next time I see
show him
him.
a recording of this. Absolutely. Tell him I'm happy to come back.
Yeah, we'll get the monster truck fired up for you.
Yeah.
Well, I know that there's a lot of people that are watching this today, and they don't think of themselves as a speaker. They don't think of themselves, and maybe some of the circumstances or the instances that you are sharing that you've gone through are the reason why they don't want to be the speaker. But I want you to maybe speak some wisdom, some encouragement, because so many people don't speak publicly and they have so much to say. Their story, their experiences, their tips, their life would bring light to other people. What would you share with those people that are maybe afraid to speak or afraid of those circumstances?
Well, first I would say, remember, there's no such thing as a fear of public speaking. Now let that sink in. And people are thinking, no, you're absolutely wrong, Jim. I have a fear of public speaking, or so-and-so has a fear. No, they don't. They have a fear of judgment. We all speak in public all the time. Hey guys, wait up. That's public speaking. You're at the dinner table with a bunch of family or friends and someone says, hey, how was Disneyland? And you go, oh my gosh. And you start telling your story. That's public speaking. We're always speaking in public, speaking to groups of people, small and larger. We just don't think of it as public speaking. Sometimes somebody says, hey, come on up to the front here, sit down. Let me ask you a couple of questions. And you're answering questions and you're not nervous. And then they say, okay, let's change this. Don't sit down, stand at the microphone and answer the same question. Oh, all of a sudden you're terrified. Why? Because your legs are straight? No, because you fear judgment. You're not relaxed. And so you're thinking about you. And that's what I tell executives when I do executive speech coaching, which I do a lot. I tell them, look, item one, you got to get out of your own head. Because you're looking at you. You're thinking, oh, am I going to be cool? Am I going to be impressive? Are they going to love me? Are they going to respect me? Am I going to get this right? Right? And stop it. Think about the value you can bring to them. Focus on your audience. Let me tell you a quick story. This is not directly public speaking, but it certainly applies because it's the mindset you're talking about, David. I was in Penang, Malaysia, in December of 2019, conducting an academy, a thing I call Going Pro Experts Academy. And my audience, my enrollees were all Chinese. None of them spoke English except Kitty, my translator. And so everything I did had to be done one paragraph at a time. Well, we went through the training for several days, had a wonderful time. We went jet skiing. We did all kinds of crazy things. And one night we were in a fishing village in Georgetown near Penang. And we were going through where all the boats are. And there were lots of little shops and tourist traps and beggars. And there was a guy there with a python you could put around your neck and take a picture and give him a tip. But so I did that. And as we walked along, there's a beggar sitting on the ground in the dirt. There's pavers, tile around him, but the place where he's sitting is just gravel and dirt. And he's filthy. He's wearing a ragged old t-shirt that's sweaty and smelly, and he's got on sweatpants, the workout pants with holes in them. And you can see though his legs are crossed, one of them's not a leg. One of them's a mechanism. He's got an artificial leg. and it shows through the holes in his sweatpants. And he's got a great big scar here on the side of his face, and he's a dark-skinned guy, and he's got a guitar and a whole stack of paper in front of him that's his speech notes, so to speak. You know, he'd written out all the songs that he wanted to be able to do. And he speaks English. Hey, hey. So as we walk by, I put a tip in his hat, and I'm walking with Kitty, and all my students are kind of behind and around me. And as we pass him, I notice he's singing in English. And so I said, hang on, Kitty. And I go back and I said, hello. And he said, hello. And I said, do you speak English? He said, a little. And I said, do you know any American songs? He said, I know Hotel California. And I said, could I sing it with you? I'm a singer and guitarist. He said, well, sure. So I sat down in the dirt with my leg against his leg. And my entourage is going, no, no. Doesn't teacher know this man's unclean? Doesn't he know this is not done? No, no, this is wrong. And so they're all, you know, kind of aghast. And I'm sitting there and I said, what's your name? He said, Halif. And I said, well, I'm Jim. And we shook hands. And he said, by the way, you want to play it? And I said, sure. So he hands me the guitar. And I start playing and singing. And I'm doing, you know, on a dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair. And he's going, cool wind in my hair. And so we're singing a duet, you know, welcome to the Hotel California. And it was great fun for me and for him. And the people don't know how to take this. So they're standing around and they're kind of like, oh my gosh, there's a camera. Don't look like you're interested, or, you know. And then some of the people in my group are photobombing us from behind, they're like we're a tourist attraction and they want to have a shot of it. And so I finished the song and I put my arm around Halif. And they're just stunned. And we're smiling for selfies. And so I give him another tip, and a lot of people started tipping him. And I thanked him very much, and we went on our way. And then I stopped a few yards down the walkway, and I said to Kitty, stop the group. So the group gathered around, and I said, why did I do that? And one of them said, you love to play guitar. I said, I'd love to play guitar, but that's not why I did that. Why did I do that? We don't know. I said, all day long, Halif sits there, probably in pain, with an artificial leg, dirty, needing a bath, probably not that well nourished. He's got some scars, so I would imagine there's some great difficulty in doing what he does. And everyone, no exceptions, everyone looks down on him. They look down on him physically, and they look down on him attitudinally. And I wanted to give him a moment of feeling like a perfectly normal, equal human being. So I sat down with him where he was sitting, put my arm around him, and we sang a song together. How long do you think he will remember that experience? And Kitty said, for the rest of his life. And I said, so will I. David, the reason I tell that story is that's the attitude. If I had been concerned about how I was going to look, I'd never have done that. I did that solely to focus on my intended audience, which was Halif. And in doing so, I gave a lesson that my group later said was so powerful. I said to them at the end, it took no education, took no skill, took no special physical ability. I could have been blind and done the same thing. It took no preparation on my part. All it took was compassion and respect for the dignity of another human life. And I gave him a moment that he might remember for many, many years. And you can do that every single day. Please do.
Yeah. I love the story, and it's similar. I use the comparison of, you know, most people are looking into the window and they're seeing their reflection. and they're thinking about all the things that they're not, versus looking out the window and seeing all the people outside that could benefit from their story. And they're walking through their life with pain and problems or passions and pleasures that they want, but they don't know how to get them. And they would have a better chance of doing what they wanted to do and getting rid of stuff that they wanted to get rid of if they could actually hear your story of how you did what you did, or how you're doing what you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you do with other speakers. If you were to give like a top 3 bullet pointed list of, every speaker could really benefit from, whether they're talking to a group of people, small group, large group, or on a big stage, 3 things that you could give to people and say, these 3 things are your basis for becoming a better speaker.
Okay. And may I interrupt first with a screen share?
Yeah, hold on just one second. Let me give you that opportunity.
Good.
And you should be able to. Let's see if you can you share your screen?
I can. Let's see. I'm going to hit OK. Share screen. Nope, still disabled at this point.
Hold on just one second.
Okay.
We'll get this figured out here. All right, now try it.
All right, I think it's going to work now. Here it comes. Now, see this? That's Halif. That's my guy right there.
Very cool.
And you can see some of my group is sitting over there. They're detached from it. And I want to show you the next picture. Just a second. Open up. There you go. That's my man.
Oh, very cool.
Now, while I was playing and singing, Halif was drumming on his hollow leg. Is that unbelievable? And it just seemed as natural as if he'd had a set of bongos in his lap, right? So you're talking about what are 3 simple things someone can do to be better, more confident as a speaker? Item 1 is remember that the purpose of the speech is the effect on the listener. That's the only reason there should be a speech. The purpose of the speech is its effect on the listener. When I give a speech, I always start with a prayer in my head. I say, Lord, help me be of value to them right now. And I want my message, whatever it is, whether it's humor or whether it's education or touching their hearts or inspiration, I want it to find its home and to be valuable to them. I don't care if they remember me or not. I'm getting what I need. I need to give them what they can benefit from. Okay, so that's item 1. Item 2 is don't worry about making it perfect. Make it interesting. And relate to the moment you're in, for heaven's sakes. Like one time, and this got me in trouble. So I'm not recommending the behavior, but I'm recommending the attitude will probably pay off for you. I was speaking for a company that provides corporate housing, and I was in their boardroom with the board of directors. And no, not the board of directors, the executive team. And the chief executive officer was one of these that was kind of very important, and everyone wanted to be sure and please the boss, right? And he wasn't in the room yet. So I'm sitting there and I'm talking with all the people, and we're chatting along, having a great time. And I'm going to be talking with him about some training programs. And as we're chatting and they're chatting with each other as well, he walks in the room. Dead silence. The moment he comes in the room, dead silence. And I looked around and I said, wow, show me how to do that. And nobody laughed. And then finally, the big guy smiled. And I said, that was powerful. I said, I'm Jim Cathcart. I'm the one they brought in. I said, pardon the interruption, but that was amazing. So him being good-natured about it saved me from sudden death. But when you relate to the reality in the room, if there's an elephant, for heaven's sake, is that elephant? Let people know that you know what they're dealing with. So if it's really, really hot, say, how many of you, like me, are trying to suppress a flop sweat? And they all laugh. And you say, look, take your workbook like this, hold it at arm's length. And then on count of one, bring it very rapidly by the side of your head. Count two, back to arm's length. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, keep that going. And now then they're cooling themselves off on a hot day and you've had a little fun with them. You can go on and give your speech. Just be real, for heaven's sakes. Don't be perfect, be real. And then I guess the third thing would be, as much as possible, use stories to illustrate your points, as I've done here. You know, the more you can bring it to life with a story, the more you make an imprint that they're not going to forget. I had a guy walk up to me in the San Francisco airport 15, 20 years ago, and he said, "Grandma." I said, "I am not." He said, "No, you tell a story about grandma. You're a speaker." I said, "You're absolutely right. I tell about grandma at McDonald's and South Roads Mall in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Were you in my audience?" He said, "Yeah, boy, it's been a long time." He said, "Maybe 16, 17 years ago." David, what? I mean, he didn't remember my name, but he remembered the story. Now, what's important is not the story. It's what the story implies or imparts. Like my story with Halif is about compassion and dignity and respect. My story about grandma in McDonald's was about being customer focused and doing what the customer's there to receive, right? So when you tell a story, tell it with the intent of leaving the message, not the story itself. So all of this comes back to the same thing. Purpose of a speech is certainly not the speech, and it's absolutely not the speaker. It's the value of the message. If you want your kids to learn not to step onto hot burning coals barefoot, you might want to do it in whatever way works and not worry about how well you said it. Well, the same thing's true if you want to teach your frontline people how to be more attentive to the needs of the customer. Just tell the truth. When all else fails, just tell the truth.
So good. And yeah, I think that just coming back to that story of you getting down on the ground and having that conversation and really focusing in on the needs of that other person versus how you were going to look in the situation and what was going to be the thoughts and, comments from other people, but just really thinking like using that as an example as when you get up to speak, you're speaking for the audience to receive a specific message and an experience that you want to make memorable. It's not about you. It's not about the comments and the applause and all the stuff, which again, when people get that feeling, and I know after 3,500 paid speeches, you've received a lot of standing ovations. It feels good to do that, but when your heart's in the right place, it changes the way that it comes out of your mouth and how it comes from your heart.
And that's, a lot of people say, well, you must love the applause and the, standing O's and all that. Well, yeah, those are nice, but those are symptoms. That's not what I'm there for. What I love is the dialogue. I like being connected intellectually and emotionally with the people I'm talking with, like this with you right now. And I like that part of it more than any other part of it, because the other part is just a symptom that tells you whether it worked or not. But a standing ovation, some groups will give a standing ovation to anybody that gets up in front. Anybody. Some groups will never give a standing ovation, but they will love you nonetheless, and they'll show it in different ways. So don't worry about whether you get a huge ovation. As a matter of fact, some speeches shouldn't produce applause. I've given some presentations where it was straighten up and fly right or we're all going to die kind of a presentation. And the last thing I wanted was applause. I wanted them to sit there in stunned silence when I walked off the stage and think, ooh, he's right. We better take this seriously. So sometimes the purpose of a speech is not to entertain or excite or motivate.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up here today, we promised everybody.
Let's just keep going.
Let's keep on rolling. Well, we promised everybody that we'd give them a digital copy, and thank you so much for making that available for people that would like to preview Jim's book, you can go to free.cathcart.com, and he'll go ahead and send that to you for free. And
It's the entire book too.
the full digital copy of the book.
Yeah.
And so you can go ahead and read through that. Our request is to support opportunities like this, and to continue to provide this quality content, is to buy a copy of the book. And whether you give that copy to a friend or a family member, but be sure that you do buy a physical copy if you like the book and you want to read more. And make sure you leave a comment on Amazon and a good rating for Jim if it's something that serves you. And as we wrap up here, Jim, if you could maybe bring in a particular lesson. I know that there's a lot of different lessons and experiences in the book, but if you could maybe direct them to one in the book that you feel has a applicability to a large audience, what would be that one?
To a large audience, you know, people who are speaking to a large audience?
No, to a large audience of
Large
speakers
audience today.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that one of them they will enjoy is when to end your speech. When do you want to end your speech? You want to end your speech before they stop listening. What? Before they stop listening? Yes. If you're still talking when they have already said, okay, he's done, you know, I've heard what I need to hear. Shut up and just get off the stage. I was one time in Florida, this guy rambled on. He was a company guy giving a report, and he fell in love with the sound of his own voice. And I was scheduled to do a 1-hour talk and close the convention, and I was loaded for bear. Man, David, I was ready to blow them away. I felt so right for this moment. You know, I couldn't wait to get on stage. And so this guy drones on and on. I go over to the guy in charge of the meeting, and I said, you got to get the hook, you know, go up there and just say, thank you, Bob. You know, I appreciate that. We're running out of time. Got a keynote speaker here. Buses are waiting outside for as soon as we're done. So thank you very much. He said, no, I can't do that. I said, I'll do it. I'll be tactful, respectful. No, he's going to stop soon. Well, no, he wasn't. So he went on, and my 1-hour speech got down to 15 minutes. And finally, you know, everybody knows the time, and they know the buses are out there because there's luggage in the lobby. And this guy said, no, wait, don't get up. Don't get up. We've got a keynote speaker. Oh, that's just what I wanted them to hear, right? So I jumped on stage and I said, ladies and gentlemen, you're about to witness a miracle. Get your pencils out. You're going to hear a 1-hour speech in 15 minutes. Let's go. And I jumped right into my message, did a short version of it, got a big ovation. They ran for their luggage and got on the buses. You know, but you do what you've got to do.
Yeah, so good. And yeah, I've learned so much from you, Jim. This has been another great opportunity. And if you all get a chance, go follow Jim on social media. He's got a great post up right now that talks about the 7 summits or the 7 peaks of a speaking career. And believe it or not, he's actually summited nearly every mountain of public speaking out there. And it's kind of fun to see the different feedback from other speakers and some of the accomplishments that Jim's had. But a great guy to follow on social media, great guy to, you know, invest in his resources. He's a wonderful speaker, but an amazing author and just an amazing guy. His wife, Paula, is a beautiful...
I've got great friends.
Oh, quit it now. His wife, Paula, is a wonderful sidekick to his Resume the Boom and playing career. I've watched him actually perform live. And his family, his son, Jim Jr., and his grandkids are a testament of the man who he is, a man of morals, a man of values. And it's appreciative of me to be able to see a guy like you, Jim, reach those summits and to know that you can do it the right way. So thanks for joining us here today. Make sure you go to free.cathcart.com, get a copy of the book, check out more on cathcart.com. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate you.
I appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, everyone.